I don't know why they put this online earlier, but the sign is going slowly. So I should say, hello everyone, welcome to the monthly transit talk for the AOA UK, and I'm so happy today. Everyone is back. We have a Mandy, we have a Marcus. Hello Mandy, hello Marcus, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, good. Good.
But first, I want to congratulate Mandy, who delivered two very popular and very successful talk during the AA conference. Congratulations!
Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Rod. Thank you, Marcus.
And
It's a
I also
pleasure.
will congratulate Marcus. We run our first live stream on Instagram.
Needed a bit of work from my end, I think, but yeah.
No, but we success. And I should congratulate myself. You know what I done today? I take our friend Keenan to visit the Natural History Museum. This is not only thing happen. On the way down there, I teach Sharon how to post her first photo on Instagram from Canva.
Amazing.
Okay, post a photo on Instagram is not a task, but she say, I make a beautiful photo on Canva. That is another level. That
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
another
No,
level.
that is it's because you got to do the editing and stuff. So
And
yeah, it
how
takes a
to
while.
get that photo to her phone and post on her Instagram. That's another level's work. So I will
Yeah.
congratulate myself. I did it.
You've been doing the Lord's work this week, Rod. It sounds like. I mean, yeah, I'm just with anything to do with Instagram. I'm just like I have the heebie-jeebies with it. I don't
You
don't
should do
don't
more. That's
understand.
it. You probably
Yeah,
need to do more. More you do it, you just used to it. But I have to say, this is sounds like a Virgo month.
yeah, and a Virgo month with the Sun opposing Saturn, right? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like
Yeah.
hot, like doing all these little jobs, but it's like you kind of have to, you sort of like have this barrier of like fear or some resistance or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. That is very interesting because you feel like something there to stop you, and you have to try a little bit harder to overcome that. And the
Yes.
feeling is not intense because that at this moment still have a few degree. So you can say, you know what, I couldn't be bothered. I don't want to do that. I can let go of it. But in another way, say, I can still try without pressure.
Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe I mean, we're preempting the pot, but we've just because we're just coming up to that opposition right now as we're recording this.
Yeah.
But I just I agree with that. I just think it's like the Saturn, the sort of I can't be bothered might actually be fear masquerading as apathy. Do you know what I mean? Like the because sometimes I think the Saturn in takes, in different signs, it disguise fear disguises itself in the
Yes.
clothing of the sign it is in. So, whenever Saturn's in Leo, where my Saturn is, it disguises itself as I'm above that. I don't need to do that, but really it's fear that's motivating it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
like if it's in Pisces, then it might be like, oh, I don't need to do that. It's fine. I can just let it go. But sometimes
Yeah.
that's a fear thing. So I think that the Sun the Virgo opposition is kind of like, okay, these jobs might be beneficial, but there's a barrier. That's one way it can show up. I've certainly noticed it myself this week in myself. Like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Also, we are not talking about the new moon, but the new moon will just happen early this week. And that set aspect looks like the only set aspect during the new moon. I think it's like a 5 degree, around the 5 degree. You can even say it's too far for the transit view, but it still has an impact for whole month. Another thing I think we want to focus on today is the Mars just changed sign. And between, I think it's the 4th of September to 4th of November, if I remember correctly, it's going to stay in Cancer. Mars is moving slowly, slowly, and eventually will retrograde when Mars go to Leo. So I think maybe because, and I think during the retrograde, it will move back to Cancer a little bit, I think. I need to check if I'm right first.
yes, no,
But
yeah.
yeah, so should I invite Mandy talk about Mars in Cancer first?
Yeah,
And I'm
sure.
going to post our link everywhere.
So it
Go
was
on.
yesterday. It went into Cancer yesterday on the 5th, and it stays there. I think you already said till 4th of November. Then it moves into Leo, and then the other story. But Mars in Cancer, and Marcus will speak more to this from the traditionalist point of view. Mars is considered, Cancer's not considered the best placement for Mars. It's so Mars in its purest form is direct, and I think this is the thing with Cancer, it asserts itself indirectly, Mars in Cancer, and perhaps defensively, maybe even sympathetically, maybe on the more negative side, and passive aggressively. And there's a real focus on security, both physical and emotional, with Mars in Cancer. It's it's how we assert ourselves into the world, but it's also it says something about how we keep ourselves safe, how we protect ourselves and others. It brings to mind me, Mars in Cancer, of the protective mother figure when the child is at risk and the mother will just do anything to this idea where this a child goes near a car and the mother suddenly finds that Martian energy to lift that car out of the way, to save anything to save the child, to protect the child and the family. So also acting intuitively potentially is another way to look at it, trusting your intuition before you act. And I also think Mars in Cancer is something about either hiding the vulnerabilities or potentially, where you're not safe, or potentially if the work has been done, not being afraid to show those vulnerabilities. And certainly anger is another thing for Mars. How do you express that? Well, anger, perhaps with Mars in Cancer, is more likely to be expressed through moodiness or maybe even that protective withdrawal. In terms of being a leader, Mars being a leader in Cancer, it's often with Cancerians can make very good leaders. In fact, I think there's some research that says that there are more Cancer Sun CEOs than there are Capricorn Sun
That's interesting.
CEOs. And I think that might be because, and it does this go into Mars in Cancer, because Mars, is how you kind of go out front and how you lead, is that a Cancerian energy will surround itself with a close-knit team or a close-knit group of trusted allies. And I think that there is strength in that. So that's over to you guys. That's my initial thoughts on Mars in Cancer.
Before Marcus take over, I want to ask you to. I maybe use the word wrong. When we describe something, protective, like you describe a mother who suddenly, when see the children in danger or something, they have a super strength. And would we also see that kind of what to say, mama bear type things in the Mars in Cancer? I don't know. I always have that image, but I wasn't sure. Am I right? Marcus is laughing.
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because I just my brain just did two different things. But one of the things it did is I just thought yes, but then I also thought of that film Cocaine Bear. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a terrible
I've seen that. It's great.
I think
like that side of Mars is kind of like it can get crazy. And I was just when what you were saying, Mandy, earlier about the sort of what was it? Because while you were talking, I was thinking of the desire to retreat being like a hermit crab sometimes. I fully agree with that. That's like a big thing. But also just the protectiveness, and that was it. It was the bit when you were saying, the protective mother who would like lift up the car for the kids. Totally agree with that. But I also think that Mars in Cancer can feel like that at the drop of a hat sometimes, like because of its sensitivity, they can have that. And I'm saying I have this placement. It's my ruling planet, so I know this very well. Mars in Cancer, delightful, and I'll talk a bit. But I know that kind of sensitivity, it's quite tricky, because sometimes if you have an emotional reaction, you can have that level of emotional response when really it's just you're having a bit of a bad day. And I think it's like the Mars ruled by the moon thing. And this is why the moon and Mars are like, they don't get on, because Mars likes to just do the job and do it, get out there and do the thing. If it's ruled by the moon is moods. The moon is cyclical. The moon is changing every 2 days. So it's like having Mars in Cancer. It doesn't matter if you're assigned male or female at birth, if you're male-bodied, female-bodied, whatever. Mars in Cancer, you're going to feel perpetually a bit hormonal. I think that's what. And I think I don't know. I'd have to talk to other Mars in Cancer natives. But yeah, I do agree, Mandy, with the protective thing. I think that's like the only way that. There aren't many things that there are lots of things that make me stressed. Like Mars in Cancer is a hyper stress sensitive placement, unlike your Mars in Capricorn, which is your placement, Rod, which I'm so envious of. And everyone with Mars in Capricorn, I'm like, it's amazing, because you guys just like, it doesn't matter if you're feeling sick or good or bad or whatever, I'm going to do the job. I'm doing the job. I'm doing the job. Mars in Cancer, I'm like, I don't feel like it today. This is not good, so there's a bit more wishy-washy with Mars in Cancer. I think it doesn't mean you can't get the job done, but it just means that there's a lot more impulse to retreat and to hide when you're not feeling up to it. Whereas I think the Mars in Capricorn, it might be feeling objectively just as crappy as a Mars in Cancer on a day. If it's feeling sick, the Mars in Capricorn will just go to work and show up on time and do the exact thing that it's required to do. And then the last point I was going to make before I stop hogging the mic was your point about I found that fascinating, Mandy, about the Cancer Sun CEOs. And having worked for a couple of Cancer Sun bosses, I think you're totally right. They make the company their own sort of little family, their kingdom, and they select people. And sometimes they play little games. They play people off, a bit like, the linchpin of the family. Like, they'll play, they'll play people off against each other a little. It's quite interesting. Mars in Cancer, I think it's like, I often think of it as the mafia Mars, because if you think about literally the mafia, their families, their crime families, what will they have you killed for disrespect, for getting in on their business, and they'll run this little operation. So that can be benignly operated, in the sense, not the actual mafia, but in the sense that you can have this close bond with the people that you work with, and it's very, you trust your team, and it's very us versus them, and that can be used in a good way, but it can also be highly toxic in a literally mafia-like way, with this hypersensitivity to outside threat that can lead to disproportionate levels of retaliation. And it's not true that Mars in Cancer doesn't retaliate. So that the issue is that if it does retaliate, it'll either go inwards or it'll be totally out of proportion to the thing. It can be, it's messy. It's a messy Mars. So it's not that it's necessarily a less dangerous Mars. It's just what makes it fallen, I think, is the hypersensitivity to threat. That's one of the things. Anyway, I'll stop.
I've experienced it in the workplace, that dynamic, and it's that sense of when you're in,
Yes.
This idea of like being part of a family. Whenever I hear in the workplace, my former corporate
yes,
life, someone saying, "Oh, we're like a big family," I'm like,
it freaks. Yes, totally. That's our Capricorn, Mandy. I'm in with the Capricorn moon. I'm just like, if anyone, particularly corporate, if they say you're part of the family, I'm like, no.
And then you often find that you are treated a bit like that. But when you're out, you are out, and that's that.
And with all the really, the reason those things shouldn't be totally 100%. The reason those things shouldn't be mixed is because, like in business, you're paid to do a particular job. In families, people expect you to do certain things because that's what you always do, right? And this is kind of what and there's all these weird little emotional fluctuations and guilt trips and things that go along with it. Don't run a business like that, but that's where it can go in the scenario. So
I want to say one point. I agree with Marcus when you're talking about the Mars in Cancer, because if just my observation, I think the Mars in Cancer, they still doing their job. Yeah, like you say. But you are describing the inner or before they jump into the job. That is like, oh, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it. But they will still do it. But the Mars in Capricorn, the feeling is just like, I don't feel like it. But the show must go on, and that's it, But still, there's still something there. Talking about the work, Marcus, you starting a new series of course?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah, that's starting later this month.
I give you 30 seconds to describe it.
I'll only need 30. It's fine. So it's a new course on. It's called Planetarium, a new school, and it's astrology for herbalists or astrology for therapists. So it's medical astrology for anyone who's a therapist of any kind and wants to learn medical astrology. And the first module is going up later this month, and it's the website is planetarium.uk. That's it.
Sure. Thank you, Marcus. It's going to be very interesting if you are a herbalist or any medicine practitioner and you are interested in medical astrology, right? Then you can really join this label course. And I think you have a further development for the astrologer who are into the herbal medicine. That's another.
That'll come later in a year or two, hopefully. So we're going to add a thing for herbalism for astrologers. So the other way around. Yeah.
I will give you another 30 seconds by the end of this year. Okay.
I wouldn't hesitate to say, please, if you are interested, don't have any doubt, sign up for Marcus's talk. I know Marcus is an astrologer and as a herbalist. I've actually been a patient of his as a herbalist.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Mandy.
Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Everyone says that. Everyone says that. Me too. Okay. Monday, but you also going to have a talk. I think it is in Brighton Astrology Circle.
Yeah, Brighton Astrology Circle on Wednesday, the 18th of September. It's about. It's called Talking to the Dead. It's actually. Very similar to the talk that I did at the Astrological Association conference last weekend. If you didn't get to go to that, then come along to the Brighton Astrology Circle. It's on Zoom. You can find them on my website. I've put something on my website about it on purposeastrology.com, also Brighton Astrology Circle website, also their page on Facebook. So it's about the astrology of mediums and psychic mediumship, basically, and the spiritualist movement.
That's super interesting. By the way, Mandy, when we finish this, I have an anecdote on that you might like. A little astrological anecdote. So yes,
please. And there was a lot of interest actually when I did the talk for the AA conference. Yeah, and a lot of people have contacted me or spoken to me and given me their insights and their stories. So it's research that is growing. So there'll be, as we go along, there'll be more to say about that. Thank you.
Oh, cool. That's all right. And I also want to announce the news from the 1st of November to the 3rd of November. It will be our second AOAUK conference. And this year we focus on mundane astrology. The theme I already decided by this morning, only this morning. Marcus nearly like, what? Yeah, this morning, the astrology of the world. So we are going to cover all the basic, but not easy or simple, but the basic technique of a mundane astrology. We have a Wade Cave going to cover the Aries Ingress, and we have Hakan going to give a workshop about the U.S. election from many different perspectives to exam. And then I think we have Leanne and Anna going to cover different way to see eclipse. That is going to super interesting. And I just invite Mandy to cover the planetary cycle, Jupiter, Saturn. And then Sharon, you know what? She was so busy, so I have to going down to Eastbourne to say, are you going to give a talk or not? No, she just totally forget. And when I sit there, about your things, after, I wasn't about to ask, but as you mentioned, are you ready? And once she said yes, I said, could you write down your blurb now? So Sharon is going to talk about very interesting topic. Mars-Saturn cycle. I know most of the modern astrologer didn't know in the traditional way that is pair. Mars-Saturn is paired with Jupiter-Saturn, right? The two cycle. So it's going to be very interesting. Cover all the technique, and I think Tanya going to cover the weather forecasting.
Okay.
So going to be hot, going to be fun. So now, next topic is full moon. And this full moon is not just a full moon, but because I think it's a lunar eclipse, if I remember correctly. Let me show the chart. So it would be a lunar eclipse and a super full moon. Three together, power of three. Could you see the? Oh no, sorry, it's not this one, right? Sorry, I was showing ourselves. I was like, what's wrong with that? Sorry about that. Here we are. I just see Marcus Wateka. What are you doing? So this is yes, correctly. This is a lunar eclipse chart. So the full moon will be on 25-degree Pisces and very close to Neptune. So who want to start this part?
So, I don't mind. I guess I could.
Yeah, all right.
I haven't really
please.
before, but all right. So I mean, it doesn't look too bad. He says possibly presumptuously, but I think it's the moon that's being eclipsed. I don't know how exact this eclipse will be. I imagine it won't be total because the moon's at 10 degrees away from the nodes, but it'll be at least a partial eclipse. And I think am I right in saying this is the first one of this series in Pisces Virgo? Is this the first one in Pisces Virgo? I think it is. It
could be.
I think it is. I think
yeah.
I think so. I'm not sure, but so it's an interesting one because it'll be a little tone shift. And the fact that the moon is close to Neptune and ruled by Jupiter, and in fact this full moon is squaring that Jupiter in Gemini, is interesting me. It suggests because that the Mars and Saturn aren't closely tied in to the lunation, and the lunation's ruled by that Jupiter. I think the idea here is something like disruption through trying to do too much and getting exhausted. Might be the vibe around the full moon. Just sort of feeling tired and too many things going on, because that's what Jupiter tends to do, and particularly in Gemini, because Jupiter's said to be in detriment in Gemini, which I don't think is the worst thing. It just means it's sort of any planet in detriment tends to in some way undermine its own agenda a bit, or sort of come apart a little bit. Jupiter will still do good stuff in Gemini. It's like, it still does good things. It just multiplies things beyond the point of sustainability, like in terms of ideas and things like that. So it's great for generating ideas and new social connections and wordplay, and just also opening Gemini up in many good ways. But squaring this full moon, I just think that the sun is in Virgo, so the inner priority, and Mercury, its ruler, is in Virgo. The inner priority is on organizing and sorting things out and tidying them and making lists and getting stuff done. The moon in Pisces always kind of wants to just chill and escape and watch a film, or just relax or have a drink or something. And then with the moon conjunct Neptune and being eclipsed and squaring that Jupiter, as I say, I think putting all that together, it just looks like too many things going on, temporary system shutdown, around the time of this full moon, something like that.
Sounds very interesting. Mandy?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all of that. And also I was just thinking about, it's of course a full moon. A lunar eclipse is of course an eclipsed full moon. So you've got all the things that we normally talk about at full moon. You've got you've kind of got the it's about relationships, because it's an opposition between the sun and the moon. It's relationships with other people. It's also that mirror relationship with yourself. What do you see in other people that is reflective of yourself, so to speak? So relationships. But because the moon is eclipsed, there's that point of not quite seeing things as they are, particularly with Neptune, which distorts and maybe that feeling of escapism. We talk about a full moon as a time when we want to be out partying, so to speak, and that's evidential that there is more kind of partying on a full moon. So there's more of that kind of like how speaking to what you were saying about feeling tired and exhausted, but kind of ignoring that, not particularly feeling that, or not really feeling your emotions either, because it's quite an emotional thing when you've got that Neptune there, particularly in Pisces. So there's these deep yearnings that are stirring, but you don't quite understand these feelings, where they're coming from. So you're more likely to go into that escapism thing, let's, if not even consciously, sort of avoiding those feelings, going out and having a party, going out, or wanting to drift into daydreams, or just to do that sleep thing, wanting to feel exhausted, just want to sleep. Also getting the sense of that being, like at a musical concert, being in a crowd, that if you've ever had that sense of you being in a wonderful musical concert, for example, or opera or anything, whichever things you like to go and see, and you're in a huge crowd and you feel like that feeling of merging and feeling lost and just part of a bigger thing. And the other thing it's made me think about as well, because you've got that Virgo there, and which is more about the mind and the mental, and it's supported by that strong Mercury there in Virgo as well. So you've got that mind, that mental stuff, and then you've got the feeling stuff there with the Pisces. As I said, relationships. So an opposition, for example, think of the opposition, think of a conflict, think of having a row with your partner. You've got that Jupiter in Gemini there, and you can imagine that kind of, which is expanding the sort of the mental patterns and the talk, and lots of talk. So you can imagine two people having a kind of miscommunication. This is something to think about or to feel, you've got Sun in Virgo going, yes, but this is blah, 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 and that very sort of on the intellectual sort of mind thinking thing, coming up with all sorts of things, that is wrong, blah, 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 practical things that might be wrong with the relationship or what the other person does. And then the other person on the other side, the more lunar side of it, says, yeah, but you don't understand how I feel. I'm talking to how I feel rather than what I think. So you've got that potential, you've got that misunderstanding of communication, which taps again into that Jupiter in Gemini there. So that's what I then, and because as you've already said, Marcus, Jupiter just expands everything, it swells everything. I mean, it's also about too many options, isn't it? This too many options. If you're on online dating, too many options. How do you possibly choose? Choices to be made. You don't have all the information.
Yeah, on that's brilliant, Mandy. And on that, I just noticed this afterwards. Like, how you sort of you look at a chart and then you keep seeing more and more things. As you were talking, I was particularly about the online dating bit. I was noticing the Venus is actually conjunct Speaker at this full moon, which is 23 Libra, which is this really happy, lovely start, and trining that Jupiter, just separating from a trine of that Jupiter. And at the same time, we have Mercury in Virgo opposing Saturn. So I think we're really on the right lines with this. It sort of feels like socially, there's all these opportunities opening up, and like you say, operas, concerts, dating opportunities, like things, good opportunities, a multiplication of opportunities. But then you kind of want to practically take advantage of them or do something. But there's some sort of fatigue or emotional messiness or just desire for escape, or there's stuff that's sort of like there's too much, and kind of like things are getting sort of like slightly disrupted at this time, I think, which is interesting. So yeah. Anyway.
Wow, sounds like a busy party time. There's all the keywords that link together. Yeah, the social, the dating, online dating, and busy and messy. I say, oh, sounds like a good weekend now.
I guess I don't know what you think, Mandy, but I mean, if I was to give a bit of advice around this full moon, I'd just say, don't overstretch yourself. Don't arrange too many things. Actually, take a bit of a break around this full moon. And sort of smell the roses a little bit, and maybe editorialize a little bit, maybe cut down the amount of outputs and things you're trying to do, because the impetus might be to want to go out and do everything. But that might sort of might cause things to come unstrung a little bit around this time, I think. So I don't know.
That's coming up very close to my Jupiter return as well, actually.
Is it? Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting full moon. I mean, I don't think it's a bad one, particularly that Venus on speaker at the same time
Yeah,
is really nice, trining that Jupiter,
sweet.
Mandy. So if your Jupiter's anywhere near that degree, that's not a bad thing at all. That's quite nice.
Ooh.
So yeah, just be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. After these beautiful things, and before we jump to the a little bit about the Libra in Greece, one thing worth to mention is that Pluto, because
Mm.
Pluto back to Capricorn earlier I said Aquarius, back to Pluto from the 1st of September, and will stay there. I just double check. It's like will stay there until 19th of November. I just double check the ephemeris. So this is the last time Pluto going to stay in Capricorn until next 200 something year. It will come back here again.
Mm.
So what's the last chance? What do you think? What are you going to do for these 1.5 months?
Oh, unfinished business.
Mm.
Oh, Mandy, give us a little bit more.
Doing Capricorn's unfinished business. I mean, talking from the mundane astrology point of view, in 2008, when Pluto went into Capricorn, just to give you a very, very swift feel for, although it felt so long, but very swift feel. Right at the beginning, we had the credit crunch, we had the banking crash, followed by the global recession, followed by austerity programs in many countries. That sort of Saturn ruled Pluto was all about lack, and it was all about boundaries and scapegoating as well, very Capricornian, scapegoating of the ordinary people. So the vulnerable people were scapegoated for being on welfare or benefits. And then what came after that in certainly in the UK and many other countries was welfare and benefit cuts. And then there was scapegoating of immigration, particularly asylum seekers, and we're still seeing that playing out now. It's still a huge issue. We saw a lot of things around national boundaries. We had the Brexit vote, obviously, in the UK in 2006, before Pluto and Capricorn, but it came into legal. It became legal, actually into effect. Yeah, during Pluto and Capricorn. So this kind of thing about protecting our boundaries and having our own protective sovereignty, my opinion is that Brexit was a huge mistake. And then if you remember Trump's wall.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, Big Brother watching you, and sort of the law and order and all that kind of thing. So now we're going to from November we're going to have Pluto going back into Aquarius. We've already a little taste, and it's about where Capricorn is about the rulers, the administrators, those in charge, those with the power. In Aquarius, Pluto is more about, well, what is the common people, the shadow of the common people, but also the ordinary people. And I think power to the people might be a phrase to sort of think about when we're thinking about Pluto coming into Aquarius. People are fed up, basically, I think, of one of the things that from research I've done in the past for another talk that I did a long time ago was looking back when Pluto was last in Aquarius, and going back even further when Pluto was last in Capricorn. That was when the ideas of our current capitalist system of free market approach to production commerce and less or no regulation from governments to let the market sort of self-regulate itself, and the idea of trickle-down economics, that was Pluto in Capricorn in the 18th century. Those ideas were seeded then. They slowly came in, they were seeded then. And of course now we get to the end of another cycle, the current cycle of Pluto in Capricorn. We see the wealth gap has massively increased. We see that trickle-down economics doesn't work. And what happened when Pluto went into Aquarius after the 18th century Pluto and Capricorn is that we saw the wealth gap that was huge then actually get smaller. So it's interesting whether by the end of Pluto in Aquarius we'll have a brand new economic system. Probably unlikely. I don't think the world has the imagination to move to another system. However, I think there will be more difficulties with modern capitalism, I think.
Yeah. Before Mark's jumping, I would like to say our society or all the system doesn't matter any kind of a capitalism or something. The change happened gradually. So it is a slightly, I would say, we should not expecting when the Pluto move into Aquarius and capitalism totally collapse.
It'll take, if it's going to collapse, it might take another 200 years.
Yes, it was slowly decay, slowly falling apart. But you can already see the things not right there, so we can work on it. But if you think about capitalism going to die out, Marcus.
No, that's a brilliant point, Rod, because like I think these outer planet cycles, the ones that aren't visible to the naked eye, they write chapters in history books, right? But when you're living through that, on exactly as you're saying, you make those changes may sometimes almost be imperceptible. It's only with the clarity of hindsight that you can sort of divide things clearly into segments in that way sometimes. That said, two things that we often say about these things, and I think probably are worth repeating. If you have placements in your own chart towards the end of those cardinal signs, like towards the end of Capricorn, Cancer, or Aries or Libra, then obviously Pluto going back into the end of Capricorn is going to trigger those off. So things that have been coming into your life in the past couple of years, say 2 or 3 years, maybe the last couple of years particularly, where particularly things where Pluto, you mentioned a couple of things there, Mandy, like scapegoating or having stuff that is troubling brought to your notice. That can be literally through other people or up in yourself or both. That's what Pluto specializes in different ways. So, and obviously the point of that is to help you in the end, I think, eliminate things which are no longer serving you or anybody else. But the immediate effect of them is usually, that process is usually you resist it because it feels like something is trying to control you or kill you. So Pluto brings up survival stuff. So I'm waiting for the next 3 months to be over because I have a bunch of things at the end of cardinal signs. So, but it's the thing about this one is it's only popping into the last degree and it sort of hangs around in that 29 degree. So to your point, Mandy, about this sort of like, this really is something that we'll see in the history books maybe, and that we can see, to your point about the economics and those resonances, just globally, this will be a little period where some things, so just watch the news and see what comes up, particularly to do with corporations and economics and boundaries and things like banking and old traditional political systems, because there'll be usually a sense of people trying to hang on to the power and established order in sometimes quite underhanded ways, probably because those people, those institutions are afraid of dying. So that's the kind of vibe.
Also Pluto is more about the fear of death than it is about literal death. That's very important to say. That's a very different, that's a distinction. You can feel like you are going to hell while you're still here, and particularly that 29 degrees there is very intense. That 29 degrees of Pluto, when any planet's at 29 degrees, it really intensifies, and it makes things perhaps feel a little bit worse than they potentially are if you can't see the perspective, or it makes things feel a little bit more urgent than they might be as well. So that's something to sort of bear in mind if you are sort of experiencing those 29 degree in your own chart. Or
is that a special term called anaretic degree?
Anaretic degree or critical degree.
Critical degree. I'm just trying to show off. I know the word.
I think it's good, Rod. I think that it's good, and in the traditional astro, those last degrees are usually, I think always in all the signs, they're the terms of the malefics, like the traditional naughty planets, Mars or Saturn. So but yeah, that last degree, was one thing when you, yeah, just your point about, really important point you made, Mandy, about it not necessarily actually killing you, you know, just feeling like it sometimes. It's like the analogy that I always make, and I've probably trotted it out on this channel a few times before, but it's like the Plato's caves thing. Like the density of the issue is small and dense and heavy, but the shadow it casts is really big. So people, you see the shadow collectively or individually, and you go, oh my God, I'm going to die. And it's not like the issue isn't there, whatever comes up, but the issue is much smaller. It's a small, dense, weighty issue. It's a small, dense mass. That's like Pluto. It's a tiny planet, really. It's not even a planet. It's like being demoted, but it's super important because we often react to the shadow. And that's what's interesting about Pluto. And I always think about the astronomical telescope photo of Pluto, where they seen the heart on it. Which is super cool. And I just thought, Pluto has a heart. And it's just like, and I often think about that because it's like if you're undergoing a difficult Pluto transit, it doesn't feel like Pluto has a heart. It feels like they are out to get you, whoever they are. But it's what's so fascinating about them is, again, with hindsight, you can usually see it's the shadow that you were reacting to, and that the actual issue is what you're sort of being signposted towards. But sometimes it can take a long time, both personally and in the collective, to get to what that actual issue is. So yeah,
and that paranoia that can come with heavy Pluto transits is part of that. Remember, that's part of that shadow, that paranoia. You know,
I'd never thought of it this way before, Mandy. But you saying that, it's almost, I mean, obviously Pluto and Neptune very different, but it's almost like with Neptune, don't believe everything you see. With Pluto, in a different way, is sort of the same. Like, don't believe the level of anxiety. If you feel really anxious or really afraid, or things come up for you, almost don't believe that level of anxiety or fear, because it's totally, usually, way out of proportion to the situation, which may call for some urgency. It may legitimately be some kind of survival issue, but often the issue is way less intense. So it's almost like, don't listen to the paranoia. I think that's a really
and it's about the loss of innocence as well, isn't it? It's about the loss of innocence. And it's also about when you feel like you can't trust systems or other people. About finding that deep faith and trust in yourself, and that is the power of Pluto, I think.
Yes, and I think, Mandy, that's beautiful. I think you've just made a light bulb go off there, because that's the Pluto and Capricorn. I think that's the TLDR of Pluto and Capricorn: loss of trust in the system.
You know yes, exactly. Yes, that is true. That is true. Well, should we jump into the Libra Ingress chart? Just a very quick few words about the next 3 months.
Oh yes, please, let's have a bit of Libra.
Before we dive, I want to say one Libra thing. Marcus, what kind of lighting you use? You look so bright.
No, it's just a ring light, so I can try and outside.
No, Marcus, don't do it. It's great. It's great. Come back.
Right. I was just gonna.
It was great. It was great. I want to ask where you get that.
I need to get a ring light. Actually, ring lights that are good for looking online. Okay.
Right.
Really nice, really nice. Yeah, that's why I was curious.
I just thought I was looking a bit like the moon-faced kid. That's all. So
no, it's perfect. It looks so nice. It looks so nice. All right, let me jump in. That's a Libra thing, isn't it? Everyone want to look pretty and nice. Here we are.
Yay.
So yes, Libra finally move away from Pluto, but Pluto's still there. But we are going to step into the Libra season, and we're going to have a Libra ingress when Sun move to the around the celestial equator area where conjunct with the ecliptic. So it's half of day is sunlight, a half of day is dark. So who want to start again?
Well.
Are you ready? Yeah.
Libra's an air sign, and I can see a kite in the middle of this chart, if you know what I mean. A kite, that aspect pattern.
Yeah.
So you've got a grand trine there. It's kind of an Earth-air grand trine. So you've got the sun there in Libra at the top, and you've got the node there. Then you've got Uranus and the moon, and then at the other part of the triangle is that Pluto at 20
Yeah.
degrees Capricorn. So you've got that grand trine, and a grand trine is kind of like it's almost like it's flow. We think of grand trines when they're in a birth chart, for example, as being sort of, you know, opportunities and talents and things that are easy. It flows, but it can flow in kind of a closed circuit kind of way. Just the energy just goes round and round and round and round and round, and it kind of needs an outlet. And the outlet we have here is actually Neptune. You can see from the sun down to Neptune, it's an out of sign opposition there, which also then the kite is formed, the kite shape. You imagine the shape of a kite. You can see that sextile there between Pluto and Neptune, and again that other sextile between Uranus and Neptune, and also the moon and Neptune. So that kind of gives that release of energy of all whatever that grand trine means. The release of energy is through Neptune, really, because you've got that opposition there. So you've got that Sun Neptune opposition. And just to say that the equinoxes, you've already said, haven't you, Rod? The equinox is it's causing the new seasons. It's one of the big quarter days of the year, and it calls in the new season. It's going to be the autumn equinox in the northern hemisphere, the vernal equinox in the southern hemisphere, and the chart for an equinox can be used as a predictive tool for the coming months, for the coming 3 months of the year, potentially longer. There are all sorts of rules around how long an equinox or a solstice chart can be relevant for, but certainly for the 3 months to come, we can look at this as a predictive tool. So yeah.
Marcus?
Interesting. No, thank you. Brilliant. Thank you, Mandy, for ending on that one, because it's always feels a bit weird to me to look at equinox or solstice charts without, because I would look at this one and interpret it as a local chart, but sort of obviously we're trying to do this as a sort of global thing. So I do this and look at this as the UK, because you're looking at the angles, but just sort of looking at the patterns in the chart. And as Mandy said, it would be relevant for the next 3 months. If we were doing this for the UK, I would look at this as being relevant for 6 months, because there's a mutable sign rising. That's Ramsay's traditional rules. But yeah, it varies. So, but for the next 3 months, definitely. The only thoughts I have on this one, I was trying to just look at it there and think which planets are doing best and which planets are doing worst. I think my favorite planet in this one is actually that Mercury in Virgo. And yes, it's separated from an opposition to Saturn. And yes, it's applying to an opposition to Neptune. So it's having some difficulty separating fact from fantasy there. But there is a bit of a nice applying trine to Pluto and to Uranus. So and Mercury in Virgo, Mercury loves being in Virgo. It is both exalted and in its domicile. So traditionally it couldn't get any more dignified. And so it sort of implies to me that in this quarter, there might be some quite useful scientific or data collection kind of stuff done, perhaps some quite innovative, potentially revolutionary, although possibly contaminated by withheld or frankly obfuscated or messed about with data at times, because that's what Neptune and Saturn will do. You know, they'll file drawer effect. Things won't be published if they go against the grain of what is being attempted to be portrayed. You know, the information might be held back, or Neptune will simply lie about stuff. But the Mercury in Virgo is pretty good. So I think it might be quite an interesting quarter for, and just on a personal level, maybe the next 3 months is a good time to come up with some new practical ideas and to sort of analyze, just come up with new systems of doing things. And yeah, some of those systems might be a bit unrealistic or hard to put in place. But I think if you use the next few months to sort of come up with new ideas on how to do things, how to file things, organize things, sort out, maybe do a bit of a digital cleanup, like purge your hard drive, organize digital stuff, come up with new ideas on how to sort your taxes out and boring stuff like that. I think it might be quite good. Or just coming up with new work related or comms ideas. That's all I've got. And the rest of it was just that Venus is still in Libra, but in the anaretic degree that you guys were just talking about, and squaring Pluto that we were just talking about. So that's interesting in terms of the next quarter sort of being potentially good. Like that Venus in the last degree of Libra, squaring Pluto, I think it's kind of relationships good, but suddenly stuff comes up that throws things into doubt, or it's like, oh, there's a challenge here. And solid relationships can absolutely survive that, but on a personal level, it might be like for some people over the next few months, there will be material coming up in their personal relationships, and they could be close friendships or intimate relationships or whatever, which will maybe I don't know, make a little bit of a power struggle, potentially, that kind of vibe. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that's, in fact, I'm going to shut up in a minute, but just it triggered another thought. I heard a relationship coach on the internet the other day saying that all relationships go through 3 phases. And the first phase is like maybe lasts up to 6 months, and that's the infatuation stage. Then the second stage lasts for up to, I can't remember how I said, up to 2 years or something crazy. And that was the power struggle phase. And he said, and this is like subconscious, and it's where the partners are sort of like jockeying for, a lot of the fizzy love chemicals have worn off a little bit, and they start jockeying for position a little bit, and it's unconscious. I imagine it's kind of like how kids push their parents. You're kind of, each one is trying to find their space and their niche in the relationship, and trying to be individual as well as being part of the relationship. So that's what that Venus square Pluto feels like to me. But yeah, I'm going to shut up now, because
it's so interesting. So Mandy, yes.
Yeah, just on that Venus Pluto as well, not just relationships. I think, well, everything is relationships, really, isn't it, at the end of the day? But, that kind of things to sort out to do with money, assets, the value of things, and also the psychological value of things, the value, your own value, your own self. How much do you value yourself? Do you value yourself enough to be in a healthy relationship, for example? So those are some other ideas. And going back to what I was saying about this kite, I sort of explained what a kite was, but I didn't attempt to sort of interpret it. But if we look at Neptune there, which is the kind of outlet, the focus for this kite. And then we look at the other things in the chart that, Marcus, you've spoken already about, the Mercury and everything. And we've got Pluto there adding power. We've got Uranus there adding sort of excitement and change. So it's even with it being Neptune, I feel that this is quite a stimulating chart, and there's the potential for sort of some dynamism, for dynamic action there, for creative solutions to issues and problems, and a heightened awareness of things, and being able to sort of have this heightened awareness of what's really going on. We've already talked about Pluto 29th degree, and we've got Venus there. What's really going on in the economics market? What's really going on in the money market? We get, that we are going to be shown things. I think we're also going to be shown things. I think we're talking more sort of in terms of what's going on in the world, rather than maybe personal in your own charts, but we're also going to be shown things that might feel too good to be true. And about what's too good to be true. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So it's about and I think what you were saying about that Mercury in Virgo, Marcus, that can help. That can help us with that discernment that we need to bring to what we see and what we hear and what we feel. So,
I love that, Mandy, and that's good in terms of the dynamism and the energy. There's a really interesting that for just trad astro, Mars, I love my Anticia. Mars and Jupiter are actually conjunct through the Anticia there. So there's a hidden conjunction between that Mars and Jupiter. That sort of hypes up what you're saying about sort of I don't know if you mentioned the financial markets or just that potential dynamism or even instability might be there. and I feel that's coming from in a weird way. There's a feeling of potential lack of energy, which is making people want to do more, or like it's almost like a fit, because I'm thinking of this in two ways. Fallen Mars in Cancer always fears like not being able to, or not not having enough power or energy or assertiveness, so it sometimes overdoes it, like overreacts, particularly if it's connected with Jupiter. And then the Sun is fallen in Libra and with the South Node, so that feels like it may feel, or people may feel like their battery is draining. So, but with the kite that you've just been describing, Mandy, that the reaction to that might be paradoxically one of sort of dynamic reaction to that. So, and I totally agree that the solution in this chart, I think, appears to be that Mercury, just being rational and maybe being aware that if you are feeling a bit drained, don't attempt to it's a little bit like the full moon in a way. Don't try and do too much, but instead just think about stuff, like really be rational and sort of think about all the possibilities, because there's lots of dynamic possibilities in terms of that new ideas and new systems that could come about here. But and there's an opportunity maybe to let go of some sort of ego attachments. I always think of that Sun South node, that the good side of it, bad side of it is could feel drained or depleted sometimes, but the good side is you can let go of just sort of bombastic or like prideful, or like, you know what I mean, like when you're trying to overdo it, like trying to I always think of William Lilly. He says like the sun in its detriment or fall, so particularly the sun in Libra or Aquarius, if it represents a person, can be a person who, he puts it in some really colorful way, like they're cracking on about their pedigree. They're almost like they're shouting, so I'm great, listen to me, no, look, because they have an internal sense of like lacking. You know what I mean? Like, whereas the sun in Leo and Aries, they're like, I know I'm the shit, I don't need to show you anything. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the sun in Libra and Aquarius in different ways can sometimes feel like they're not. So with the South Node, it could exacerbate that, or it's an opportunity just to think, I don't need to do any of that. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to. So anyway, just
should I take it personally?
yeah. Well, that's no, stop it. It's like I've seen it only specifically that way when in horary charts, when the sun symbolizes a person. In birth charts, people who are Libras and Aquariuses, no. I've although there were one or two celebrities, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because but yeah, I've got a friend who's interesting, because I have my sun exalted in Aries, and my ruling planet Mars in fall, and I have a friend who, like me, has Scorpio rising, but her Mars is in Capricorn, but her sun is in Libra. And it's so interesting seeing how like we differentiate. Because I'm like I get less done. I kind of, my work goes in slumps and goes up and down. And sometimes I'm like, I come to a task about 4 or 5 times. It's that crab going sideways thing, like where she'll Mars and Capricorn thing, she'll go into work, she's really busy, she hammers it out, she gets the job done, it's done. Whereas I'm like coming back to it over 2 or 3 weeks, you know, just to finish one job. On the other hand, she'll often call me up going, I think I'm crap at my job. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're brilliant. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's so interesting. It's just like, it's so I think the issue there is the more that if you have a planet in fall, it can often think that it's not as good as it actually is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm just teasing you.
You know, it's important because I don't want people watching this thinking, hang on, I'm a Libra sun, I'm an Aquarius sun. Does that mean I'm... No, it doesn't. But...
No, it's not like that. Yeah. So, Matti, are you going to say something?
No, I think we've covered a lot. I was just everything I was going to add when you talked about the Libra sun in that chart there, Marcus. In opposition there, and you were talking about the sort of fragile, I think fragile ego. I think you were trying to say.
No, just something potentially.
Yeah, possible.
Neptune is very good at dissolving the ego. So.
Yes. Yeah, and that's brilliant, because the South Node is a point of detachment, of letting go. So it's a double whammy, really, isn't it? Yeah,
Neptune's conjunct the North Node, which is about, actually, that might be a process that is very useful.
Yes, and again, it's an interesting one because again, it could go either way. Where you've got the Sun
Yeah.
Neptune can develop guru syndrome, and the Sun Nat South node can develop. Oh, I mean nothing. Do you know what I mean? But actually, the opportunity, yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that kind of rescue me type of thing, and
yes,
then comes the guru along to rescue. Something to bear in mind. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, just like if it feels too good to be true, or
yeah, I liked your I can't believe it's not butter analogy. I thought that
was. Oh wow! After you talk about these two charts about the full moon, lunar eclipse, and this increased chart, I just feel a little bit more relaxed. To be honest, I can see a lot of dynamic, a lot of things going on. But I think it is always we can find some point to anchor it, or at least we know how to deal with it. So it's not like it's just a tension or something, and kind of bash your head into the wall or something. So I feel more relaxed now. I feel a little bit more relaxed now. Well, I want to say thanks to Mandy and Martin joining me today and bring everyone so interesting interpretation about full moon in Pisces and our Libra Ingress, and also remind everyone a little bit about the Pluto. Go back to the Capricorn and going to move backward in the Aquarius in November. Sounds so interesting, and I have to thank everyone to be here. So don't forget. Marketplace is herbalist course beginning this week, and Monday also have the talk to the dead. Am I right?
Yeah, talk to the dead.
Talk to the dead.
I've noticed that's the lunar eclipse date actually.
Oh, going to be fun. Going to be fun. Yes.
Yeah. My course, by the way, Rod, isn't until the 20th. That the first module will go up on the 22nd, but the website is open now, so you can have a look at the website.
Yes, okay. Please send me the link. I'm going to post on here. Excellent. We have so many followers to watch this video. So please, it's a great time to do advertising. I totally forget my own course. 21st September, I'm going to teach Comet in AOAUK. Okay, I'm going to teach Comet because a Comet coming up. And also, don't forget, we have the AOAUK Mundane Astrology Conference by the end of this year, from 1st to 3rd November. Register will open very soon, and I will send out a link, especially if you are on our email list. You are going to have a half price discount. Yay! So, okay, thanks everyone, and see you next month. Bye.